Hey guys, and welcome to the Aundrea Besst writing series. This is going to be a three-part series where I talk about lots of different topics that I've experienced as far as being a writer and what I think would be helpful for someone who's just starting out or just getting their feet wet in their writing career, things that have helped me. And so tonight's topic is going to be children's book writing. When I first started to craft the project of creating a children's book, there were a lot of things that I really didn't know after the book was written. So it took me no time to write the book, but then you have so many other things that you really have to think about. So if you're just getting started, I want to give you some tips and tricks on what it'll take to just create a really successful children's book. So the first tip that I think will be truly helpful when you're starting to write or you're thinking about writing a children's book is inspiration. You have to be inspired by something. You have to be inspired by someone or some place. It's just going to bring the book to life when you are inspired by something. It makes it more real. For my book, I was inspired by my little cousin. She's a real person. And so I was able just to speak to her, to who she is, to the little girl that she was. She's a little older now, but to the little girl that she was. I also have another book coming out called Little Boy, Big Joy. That's also about an older cousin of mine who embodies everything that a little boy should have, the joy that a little boy should walk around with. He was one of the first boys that I've seen just laugh till he cried. And so I think that making the book so personal, it drives me to want to make it great, to write something that is real. I really push being inspired when you're writing any book, but children's book especially, because I just feel like it creates the story and allows you to develop the illustrations from there. One of the things that'll help with that is the illustrations. And that's my next point. Illustrations and finding your illustrator. That's going to be big with children's books. I wanted to find an illustrator who was comfortable and who could really bring this character, this real person, this real little girl to life through a drawn image. I really wanted it to be realistic. And so that was the one thing, that was one of the first things that I looked for when I went on the search for an illustrator. Can they draw pictures that are realistic? It just makes it a little bit easier once you do start to develop each illustration for each picture. That's one of the most challenging things, is because you have to take the words and turn it into pictures. You have to figure out, okay, what's going to convey, what picture is going to convey the words the best. And so I just want to give you a little example of what I mean when I say you have to pick out what words or what phrases you want to choose when you're choosing your illustration. Like, what pictures are you going to draw from those words? And so here's my book. Now the words say, Alana is a special girl who loves to see smiles. Her laugh is contagious. It spreads for miles and miles. So I had to figure out what image is going to convey that she's a special girl who loves to see smiles. Her laugh is contagious. It spreads for miles and miles. The image that I just chose was she's bringing a basket of cookies, cupcakes, and pies, which is referenced on the previous page, to an elderly neighbor. And so I had to think in my head, okay, does this convey she loves to see someone smile? Is her sharing the things that she bakes with someone who lives next door? Is that showing her generous heart? Is that showing that she loves just to make people smile? For me, it was. And so that's how I created the image. And those are just little things that you have to think about when you are thinking about your illustrations, that I have to pull these words and turn it into a picture. What's going to be most interesting for children? And that actually brings me to my third point. My third point is, when you're writing a children's book, you want to think like a child. You want to think about the child that's going to be reading your book. I would say that my book is for a younger reader. There are lots of bold pictures, lots of bright colors. The words are really big on the pages. And so my book is for a younger reader who, even if they can't read, they can look at the pictures and still appreciate the book. So when you're writing and when you're creating a book, from the writing portion to the illustrations, think about the child that you're writing for. Are you writing for a younger child? Are you writing for an older child? The words that you're using, are they going to be, are they going to make sense to the child? There are some words that I have in my book that I tested on my daughter. My daughter's 3. And so there are words in here like I use that are like contagious. She doesn't necessarily know what that means, but can she comprehend with the context